Welcome to ELEC3844, Engineering Management and Society. Today's topic is crisis management. So crisis management means a process that organizations need to encounter to face a major event that may harm to the organizations, and this event is unexpected. There are four common definitions of crisis. First, it has to be fresh to the organizations, it's harmful, and also it makes a surprise to everyone, it's not expected, and also it happened in a very short time, and we need to do something to deal with the change. The old system can no longer work. For example, the recent coronavirus, this pandemic is a major crisis to everyone, every countries, and we need to do something to deal with it. And it happened in a very short time, and nobody could expect that it happened, so it's a surprise to everyone, and this is of course very harmful to everyone, every organizations, every countries in the world. In the last lecture, we talked about risk management, which we measure the potential risk, its impact, and the probability, and how to avoid the risk to occur. But for crisis management, it's different. The risk had occurred already. So we're talking about how to deal with the risk, how to solve the problem when it has been occurred. So crisis management can be considered as a failure of risk management. You fail to avoid the risk to be happen, and therefore you need to do something to recover it, to rectify the risk. So no matter how small the chance that this risk may occur, but if impact is high, so once it's happened, then you need to do something to handle this crisis. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need to. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need to do in order. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need to do from it happened to the time. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need. In crisis management, there are 5 steps that we need to do from the moment that it occurs until the point when it can be recovered. These 5 steps are: identify, assess, understand, ease, and overcome. Or you can remember as AEIOU. A for assess. You need to assess the level of crisis, the impact, what damage will it bring to the company. And then E for ease. That is, what are the measures that we can do in order to reduce the impact, to ease the situations. I is identify. To identify the problem, identify the cause, so that we can find out the solutions accordingly. And then O for overcome. So once you find out the measures, you take actions and then try to overcome this crisis. And finally is U, understand. So after this crisis have been solved, you also need to understand what are the problems and what are the causes of this crisis, so that you can avoid it next time. And there are 3 M's in the crisis management plan. They are metrics, or we call measures, methods, and also message. So for the metric, we need to define what are the scenarios that constitutes a crisis. So when will be trigger the crisis management process. And then method is to respond to the reality and the perceptions of crisis. What are the methods, what are the solutions that you can offer to solve the crisis and risk? And then the third one is message, the communications. How will you communicate with your stakeholders, including your staff, the investor, your customer, your supplier? When the crisis occurs, we need to pass the right message to the stakeholder in the right way so that we can comfort them and also tell them that this crisis can be solved and gain their trust. Let me give you a case study. Perhaps you can still remember when iPhone 4 was introduced, there was some problem. It was a technical problem. The case was made by metal, which looks nice, but because the antenna is also embedded at the edge of the case. So when you touch the phone like this, so your hand will basically short the circuit. You can see this is shorted. As an engineer, we know that when you short the circuit of the antenna, the receptions will be very poor and you can't receive the signal. When this technical problem was discovered, this batch of iPhone has already launched to the market. So you know what happened? Then the immediate response by Steve Jobs is that he told the customer that not to be worried. You can simply hold the iPhone like this, okay? So you don't touch the two edge, then you can talk. Of course, the customer will not be satisfied. This is not the right way to solve the problem. When this problem was discovered, the reactions from the market is quite negative. So the confidence level drops until Apple really offer a solution. They offer a pumper, okay, which is a plastic cover that can cover the edge. So they give away this pumper for free to their customer as a compensation to rectify this problem. But at the same time, they also turn this crisis into an opportunity. So they produce different colors of the pumpers. So they give just one pumpers to the customer for free, and they are welcome to buy other color sets so that they can match with their fractions. And they can then turn this into a marketing and another sales opportunities. So after they launched the pumper as a recovery measures, they gain the confidences from the customer, and then they have a new design and solve the problem eventually. In order to solve the crisis problem, there are 6 plans that we need to solve, namely the emergency response plan, crisis management plan, mitigations action plan, operations recovery plan, disaster recovery plan, and restoration plan. So in the whole process, you can see different color, starting from emergency plan. Okay, when you handle the problem, you need to take emergency actions, and these actions may not be fully able to solve the problem. You just buy time. And more importantly is this green part, which is the operational recovery plan. You need to think of a real and solid solutions that can solve the problem. And afterwards, you also need a restoration plan that can help to return to a normal phases. So crisis in Chinese is 危機, or in 普通話 is 危機. So means dangers and opportunity. Whenever there is a dangers, it's also come along with an opportunity, because you need to do something to change the current situation so that you can solve the dangers. And quite often, this change may also bring in opportunities. For example, in the iPhone case, they successfully turned this crisis into an opportunity, not only to solve the technical problem by introducing the idea of a pumper, but also make it as a marketing tool so that they can create more sales and sales opportunities. There was another crisis happened in year 2011, which is the Fukushima earthquake, and which resulted in a tsunami and damaged the power plant in Fukushima and finally caused the explosions in this nuclear power plant. So what was the lessons that we can learn from these accidents? This is also a good demonstration of a bad crisis management. A negative example. There were a number of mistakes made that make these situations worse. First, they could not catch the time and they missed the good timing, and let the reactor continue to burn after the cooling system was damaged. They also missed the chance to effectively communicate with the experts and their people, and missed the chance to evacuate immediately. So this vital mistakes is a result of the poor communications. So in crisis management, communications with the stakeholders is very important. So don't fall into this mistake. First, gradual disclosure of your facts and evidence is no good because you lose the trust from your stakeholders. So gradual means bit by bit, just like squeezing your toothpaste. When the media asks you some questions, you disclose a little bit. But the media is smarter than you, so they will disclose more than what you have disclosed. And then you will lose the integrity and trust by the public. If it happens, then you lose. If you lose their trust, then no matter how hard you try, then you cannot demonstrate your accountability, and you also fail to take corrective actions. So you need to always prepare for the worst case scenario. Also prepare for this mindset and prepare a contingency plan. What if the first crisis management plan does not work? You need to have plan B, a contingency plan, and always be alert. And also, during the normal situations when there's no crisis, no risk, you still need to analyze what are the potential risks and then drill and do exercise. And in the contingency plan, you need to assign a spokesperson who will prepare to communicate your crisis message to the public. And this message should be speed and efficient, and you should be factual and also be convincing. So the message has to be accurate. Don't give any fake informations. And regarding the communication content, you have to identify who are the audience. Whether you are talking to the government, your investor, your customer, your staff, different stakeholders may have different message for them, and we may use different communication channel for different stakeholders. For example, TV or the public media, like the radio or traditional newspaper channel. Or for young people or students, perhaps we may use YouTube or Facebook, this type of new social media. So we need to identify who are the audience and use the right media to communicate with them. And what are the message to be communicated? Whether tell them not to be panicked, or whether tell them the fact, or give them the worst scenario and prepare for the worst. So we need to think of what are the message to be delivered at different stage of the crisis. Let's see this video which gives us some tips of a good crisis management practice.
The 10 Golden Rules of Crisis Communication. Rule 1. Don't try to deny or hide what cannot be denied or hidden. Acknowledging your mistakes and faults will increase trust and avoid future crisis. The truth will come out eventually. Rule 2. Quick action is the key to a crisis communication strategy, allowing you the possibility of presenting the crisis and what you are doing to solve it as part of the same narrative and reducing media attention. Rule 3. Think long term. It is important not only to solve immediate problems or limit direct damage, but also to include these actions in a long-term strategy designed to regain trust and improve your reputation. Rule 4. Crisis communication should take place on a managerial level, but remember that every employee is a relevant audience, a witness, and a possible interview partner for the media. Rule 5. Journalists are neither persona non grata nor colleagues you can rely on. Be open and reliable as an information source, but maintain a constructive distance. Rule 6. Restrain the classic human desire to be in the right, to win an argument. This is not what it is about. Rule 7.
Oh my God.
Dare to overreact, as long as it is justified. Rule 8. Don't try to create consensus. Rule 9. Involve friends and enemies, and consider all key audiences in your crisis communication strategy, and integrate or address every one of them.
Hey, what about me?
Rule 10. Never stop constantly monitoring problems and issues that could develop into a crisis, and update your prevention plan accordingly.
Now in this video, we can summarize that there are 10 golden rules for crisis communications. Namely, acknowledge the mistake. Okay, don't deny. If you continue to deny the mistakes, then you will lose the trust from your audience. And take quick actions. Don't delay, because crises happen quite suddenly. And if you delay the actions, then you may miss the golden time. Third, you need to have a long-term strategies. Don't just try to solve the immediate problem today, because if you tell a lies that may solve the problem today, then another bigger problem may happen tomorrow. Fourth is the communications from management to all levels. So don't just try to please your investor or the board of directors. You have to communicate the message consistently to all levels of staff in your company. Because if they don't know what is happening, they may spread the rumor or tell something that are not consistent to the public and damage the trust of the company. Fifth, be a reliable source of media at a comfortable distance. So we need to build a good relationship with the media, but at the same time keep a comfortable distance. And perhaps Donald Trump is a good counterexample. Sixth is to restrain the desires to win the argument. Remember, this is a crisis management, not a debate. You don't need to win the argument. What you need to do is to gain the trust and then turn the big problem into a smaller problem and solve the small problem. And number 7 is appropriate and honest. Dare to overreact. Now sometimes if we overreact, it may help to solve the problem, but it may also worsen the problem. So this overreaction is an art. What should be the level of overreact? If we react too little, then we cannot solve the problem. And the public may have a feeling that you are reacting too slow. And if you overreact, sometimes you can rectify the problem right away, but sometimes this overshoot may worsen the problem. So you need to be very careful. And number 8 is that do not try to create consensus. You may not need to create consensus with your stakeholders. Remember, the most important objective is to stop the storm, stop the crisis. And number 9 is to consider all audience in the communication channel. And all key audience refers to your customer, your stakeholders, investor, staff, government, and the general public. And last but not the least, never stop monitoring the problem. Sometimes you need to avoid the problem from occurring again. In short, we need to maintain a good credibility and reputations of your company, so that whenever there's another crisis occur in the future, the message of the company is trustable. These are the possible ways that you can communicate your message with your audience. Give a full apologies, or take some corrective actions. And sometimes you may argue and try to explain the reason why you have these decisions or why this crisis happened and make justifications for this. Or in some cases, if this crisis is not your own problem, you need to honestly and humbly tell your customer that this is not your problem. You look for a reason or excuse and tell them the real problem. I believe that if you are honest and if you can gain trust from your customer, they will believe in you. And then, if necessary, if this is not your fault, you may confidently deny this problem and also even attack the attacker. But you need to be very careful if you take these actions. Look for an excuse, deny the problem or attack the attacker, because this may worsen the situations and create a war between you and the media. But also you need to be very careful if you take the first 3 actions, that is, you admit the problem, you apologize, which may also arise in compensations in the future. But anyway, if you decide to apologize, which may be very often the best strategies, because the general public, your customer, will appreciate your effort. and also your accountability. Then, how can we make a convincing apology? You may give some cash compensations to your customer or refund your product, give them some alternative solutions, just like the bumper in the iPhone, and also provide some immediate support. For example, for airlines, if their flight is delayed, they give some compensations or provide them the coupon or the hotel accommodations. Or write an apology letters to your customer or give them a face-to-face apologies. And more importantly is that afterwards you need to rebuild your PR, your public relationship image, and promote your image of the company. Anyway, no matter what actions you decide to take, these are the right attitude of crisis management. So you need to be accountable, you need to accept your responsibility and willingness to take positive steps. Okay? So don't hide behind the curtain. You need to face the reality, face the problem, and solve it. And also, two-way communication is very important. Don't just think that you have communicated the message to your audience, but whether they accept it, whether they can receive this message and understand your reason is also very important. And don't tell lies, because once you lost the trust from the audience, it's very hard for them to believe you again. And for the media, when they want to report the crisis, they want accurate information, and the information should be simple to understand. And if possible, give them some quantitative number. For example, in the recent coronavirus situations, the number of deaths, the percentage of recovery, or the death rate. Okay, all these numerical number may help them to quantify the problem. And very often, media also like to bring up some controversial elements in the news, so that their news will be more eye-catching. And also they will report the case in both sides. So even though you just tell the bright sides, the positive sides of this crisis and how your company manage these problems, how good your companies are, they will anyway take out some problems to report. Okay, what are the shortcomings, what are the disadvantages, and what are the missing actions that you should take. Okay? So they will also report from another side, another angle. You need to prepare for that. Prepare an answer how to react to those negative side informations. And finally, speed is also very important. Don't delay your message to the public, because crisis is crisis. It happens suddenly and it will evolve very quickly. So you need to take timely actions to respond to the media inquiry. I hope these crisis management lectures will be useful for your future, and I hope you don't need to use this lecture material in the future, because there's no crisis in your life.